What up, y'all? A little intro. Scotland the Brave, in honor of Robbie Burns Day, which I believe is today. So, if you if you haven't had your haggis, go get some. I plan on having some today, hopefully. Anyway, I go to Kilkenny's, an Irish bar. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the wall and it's just come to my attention that people like to use these cute little rhetorical tricks, and usually you put out some bromides, things like because. There are several reasons. Usually they're losing the argument. Say hello. This is Madison. Can you say hello, Madison? Bye, y'all. When liberals are losing an argument, they trot out three reasons, or three arguments: because reasons, because Hitler, and because shut up. Because reasons they're all weak, but we're in the because reasons stage when it comes to liberals and what they feel about the wall. On my Facebook page, they say, well, walls don't work. You can go over them, you can go under them, you can go around them, you can scale them, fly over them, blah, blah, blah. That's all true, generally speaking. Okay? I could say the same thing about a house. You can burgle that house over there, you can burgle that house over there, or that house over there, or this one. You can burgle them. Well, there's a house at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Can you burgle that one? Nah. Well, there you go. You see, there are walls and there are walls. Okay? Walls have worked throughout centuries, throughout history. They always have. Do they work 100% of the time? No, nothing this side of heaven works 100% of the time. Never has, never will. But they are very effective overall. Look at the Great Wall of China. The Huns, that was built to keep the Huns out of China. So what did the Huns do? Well, they went, 3,000 miles that way into Europe, having to cross the taiga, tundra, desert, you name it, they had to cross it to get to Europe. Whereas China was just like 10 miles that way. You see? And the Huns had no guarantee that once they got to Europe, things would be hunky-dory, or they'd find things. Western Europe especially was undergoing the so-called Dark Ages. They weren't really dark, but it was the fall of the Roman Empire in the West. And they didn't have a lot of the luxuries and amenities that one would have expected from an advanced civilization like you had in China. Okay? So the walls do work. That's not the point, though, however. The point is that the people who are proffering this argument, who are at least have two active brain cells, they're not saying this because the wall won't work. They're saying it because the wall will work. Okay? In other words, they're not arguing in good faith. They're bad faith actors. And that's true of most ideologues. They are bad faith actors. Both of the left and the right, but mostly on the left. The right doesn't have that big of a problem because, to be a rightist, to be a conservative, a traditionalist, means that you pretty much have an accurate understanding of human nature. Okay? We don't have to jump through hoops to explain this type of pathology in that group, or this type of explanation for that group. Especially if you're a Christian, we know that this is a fallen world. We're all sinners. So the ideologues on the left have to constantly engage in sophisticated arguments to try and defeat their opponents. In Trump, they've met their match, maybe because he was pretty much a Democrat most of his life, and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi sucked at his tit. Pardon my French. Okay. So he knows the way the game is played. In this sense, he's kind of like St. Paul. St. Paul was a Pharisee of the Pharisees, a Jew of the Jews, as he said. He knew all the rhetorical tricks, and he used them to the greatest advantage. Now, I don't want to equate Trump with Paul. I'm just putting that out there as an analogy. Okay, so the wall will work. Overwhelmingly, it'll work. If you don't believe me, then ask the Israelis. They know it. They know their wall works. I don't know if you remember the 90s, but there were suicide bombings going on all the time in Israel. Okay? Dozens and scores of people would be killed almost on a weekly basis. And literally, I actually talked to somebody who witnessed one, and body parts would fly. Heads would fly that way, and arms would fly that way, and it was horrifying. Well, they haven't had a suicide bombing since, have they? Have there been attempts? Yeah, there are always going to be attempts. Anyway, the idea that the wall will not work is ludicrous. It will work, and that's what terrifies the left. They have three reasons. First of all, they want a permanent, growing, inexorable underclass always flooding our shores. The underclass is dependent on the overclass. Okay. Second, they want a permanent voting bloc for the Liberal Party, whatever the Liberal Party is. In our day and age, it's the Democrat. Third, and this is where it gets tricky, these migrants, when they come from third world countries, they assimilate sometimes. The higher IQ ones assimilate to an extent, become professionals or gainfully employed, but the second generation doesn't, and the third generation. We've seen this in spades in Europe, where Muslim migrants of the second and third generation join gangs. Okay? What the oligarchy wants is these MS-13 types and ISIS types, whether they're of Islamic or mestizo background, to set up permanent gangs. Okay, these gangs are paramilitary wings. That's the way you got to view them. Okay, and they're a good way to cow the population, the native Christian population of the United States or the native Christian population of Europe. They, I know this sounds fantastic and hurtful, but that's kind of the way it is. The Romans did this with bringing in the Visigoths. The Chinese did this with bringing in the Manchu. Okay, the Byzantines did this with bringing in the Varangians. Okay, this is not uncommon. Because of the Constitution, our Constitution, the military is not in the business. It's forbidden from joining from putting down or engaging in any police actions. Okay, but that's because of the Posse Comitatus Act. They can only do it in case of an insurrection. Okay, but the MS-13, the New Black Panthers, the Nation of Islam, the KKK, okay, ISIS, these groups are do not fall under the umbrella of the Constitution. Okay, they can be used to cow the majority population, and that is the most nefarious reason as to why the oligarchy wants untrammeled illegal immigration. Pax Vobiscum, and let's try to love one another. Adios.